want to first share a story that happened a couple of nights ago because it sort of summarizes the kind of work that I'm doing and why it's important. So a few nights ago, I was going through my phone, to look at my photo gallery just to see things I had to delete because I do it one by one. I'm not very tech savvy. And I came across an album that I had not seen before. So I clicked on and it says babies on it. And when I clicked on that album, there were 2,365 pictures of babies, not children, not toddlers, babies. And everything came rushing back, all my memories came rushing back because it was a culmination of work I had done from 2005 to 2025. The work that I had done to intervene in my small way to make sure that the new beginnings that mark babies' birth into the world had some kind of intervention that actually made a difference and made things better for them. And I actually reflected on this and thought about what it is and how the work culminated is one thing, but how it's so important and where I started right here at the very beginning as a volunteer when I was in university too. So I started as a volunteer when I was 18 years old, when I lived in America, and decided from then that there was something I wanted to do to look at sort of inequality and social justice for many, many people that I came across. There's my title, Limitless, The Art of Not Backing Down, simply because I am an activist. But again, there is no handbook on being an activist. You do so simply because you have conviction and you believe in social justice, and it's aligned to values that I hold very, very dear. The first time I said no, in Malaysia, I'm not going to talk about America, I came back in 2001, had volunteered for 20 years in America, working in soup kitchens, at beautification programs in different schools. I lived in New York, did a Read to Me program, did everything just to sort of culminate and get all the experiences I could get to see which area I wanted to sort of invest in. I had been trained as a researcher and I had been trained as a teacher, but I didn't want to teach and I didn't want to do research. And I was searching for answers and meaning in life that mattered to me. The first time I said no has very much a lot to do was when I came back to Malaysia. So the idea was when I came home in 2001 that I would only stay for a year and then go back to New York. But what happened was I volunteered at a daycare center in KL, and the first thing I saw when I went in that first day of work was a refrigerator with no food in it for about 40 children, all under 12 years old. A daycare center where children were coming in on their own, which was totally not aligned to what daycare centers should be, which is basically places where children are safe and protected. Children were coming in on their own and just staying because parents were working at night in childcare, and it wasn't aligned. The first time I said no was when a 12-year-old kid came in, caught by some adults, and presented to social welfare officers who happened to be at the center the day I was there, and taken from his mother because she was deemed unfit. And what happened was he had run away from home 7 times and was placed in a government welfare home for the 8th time in a more secure place and left there till he was 18 years old. And I said, no, this cannot happen. I was convinced, and it was conviction that actually spurred me to say something and to protest and say, you cannot do this to a 12-year-old. Conviction is that fire in your belly. Conviction is when, despite being fearful and afraid, you push ahead and say, stand up and say, no, this is wrong. I want to do something about it. And I needed to step in for this 12-year-old who was taken against his will and placed in a place where he wouldn't see his mother who was dying from cancer. Conviction starts with showing up. Conviction starts with standing up and seeing injustice and saying, no, enough is enough. So yes, I'm known as the co-founder of Yayasan Childcare. and Voice of the Children, which does lead perform. But right now, what I'm trying to do is to start another NGO called Madia's Gift, which I'll tell you a little bit about. Because again, I saw a gap in the system in child protection. I've been working on child protection for 43 years. And I have never seen anything like the gaps I've seen in Malaysia, simply because a lot of the laws don't exist for children if they're different. We have a tendency in Malaysia, as in the rest of the world, but I live in Malaysia, where we love to other another person, make them feel less than. So the child who changed everything was an 11-month-old Afghan refugee child who was referred to me from one of the doctors in the hospital because she was denied access to health services simply because she was a refugee, 11 months old, diagnosed with pediatric cancer. She had been turned down by every single government hospital, every single one. She couldn't even get in. And for 5 months, she waited and waited as she got more and more sick. The end of the story is we managed to get her in one of the Ministry of Higher Education, so a university hospital, to get her in, but the condition was that she had to waive her 50% discount. Long story short, we got her resettled to Australia where she got treatment, but by that time, she was already 1 year, 3 months, and she had gone through this countless number of treatments, and she died. And so I was angry because at the same time this happened, there were other little ones, all under 2 years old, who also were denied access to services simply because they were refugee children. And I decided to turn that grief into something that had to make a difference and do something, so I decided to start a new NGO. That child who was abandoned and the consequential other cases that came about was what speared my head. I decided to use my skills in university to document all the cases, to track patterns, and to see what I could do to help. So Maria's Gift will be launched this year. We have to date hundreds of cases, and I want to do something about it. But that one child made that difference. And that one child, which turned anger and grief into something productive, is why I'm here today to tell you that ordinary people, I didn't start as an activist, I didn't start as someone special, I'm just an ordinary person who decided to use a conviction to turn it into action and to turn it into something that did good for others. So Madia's Gift is named after Madia, who was the 2-year-old Afghan child who died. I thought she was safe. I really did, and she wasn't. And I think, doing something negative and turning it into something positive is a form of resistance. Activism doesn't have to be in your face thumping loudly. It can be something that you do, small things that you can do with your friends to make a difference because you see something that's wrong. It's really about what you are willing to stand up for. What are you willing to stand up for? If you don't need permission to do something, you don't need to be rich, you don't need to be powerful, and you don't need to have many, many connections. You just need your friends, you have the will, the purpose, and you can just go ahead and do it. So for me, it's very simple. What breaks my heart? And what breaks my heart is knowing that there are children out here in Malaysia who have no equitable access to services simply because they are different. It doesn't have to be refugees and stateless. It could be children with disabilities. But that's what breaks my heart. That's what spurs me. That's why I do what I do. I've been told no so many times, it doesn't bother me much anymore. No is not personal. Turning that no into a yes is possible in every which way you look at it. My ex-boss in New York used to tell me, no is turn the no into a yes. No's are really about finding solutions that aren't found yet. There is no such thing as no. No is something you turn into yes every step of the way because possibilities are always there, which is why anything you do, if you put your mind to it, is limitless. You are already enough. You don't need to be, like I said, rich or powerful. Just do what you do. You need conviction, you need purpose, you need action, and you can do anything. Right now in this world, so many things, bad things are happening. And when we talk about making a difference, it's really about creating movements. Movements means you move, you do something. And doing it in small steps is perfectly fine. But when you do small steps and you get other like-minded people to do small steps, it becomes bigger steps and more ripples. And that's what change is, positive change. And you can do it. Yes, I walk through walls. I actually have a dent here in the middle of my forehead from banging so many walls. But yes, I walk through walls. I walk through walls. I have doors that are slammed in my face many, many times. It's not personal, but that's what happens. But I do it because children can't speak for themselves. Children can't say, I am hurt. Children can't say, I am sick. It is up to us as a community, which is what we all are part of, a community, to help one another. It is our job as a community, as people, as human beings, as being part of this humanity circle, to try to help one another, because we know some can't stand up for themselves. That is what activism is about. It is not about demonstrating on the streets. It's about moving together as a group to create change, and that change becomes bigger and bigger with more ripple effect to make the difference that you want to do. Do we get to say when it happens? No, but we know it will, because we live in hope. And hope is one thing nobody can take away from us. We are limitless because we live in possibilities. We are limitless because we live in choices that we make, things that we do. We are limitless because we're human beings with values who say to ourselves, we need purpose, we need to align it with our values, and we want to make the difference, whatever it is. So you don't have to go out on the streets and be an activist. You don't have to be in the papers and say all the things that need to be said like me. You can do your own things in your own way to make that difference, because you choose, and that's really what it's all about. You choose who you want to be and what you want to be and what kind of difference you want to make. So thank you very much.